Hello again, it's me Mandala, and today I'm back with another open world buildcraft video. And so today I wanted to walk you through a build that I've had a lot of trouble coming up with, which is this open world power thief Deadeye build. And so I'm going to really quickly do a demo on the build and then we'll go through it. So with this build, I spent a lot of time like arguing with myself which way I wanted to set it up. So I ended up kind of making a two-in-one build. So I'm actually going to demo both builds, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on some pulsing damage just so you can see that this is a strong survivable build for open world on Thief. And so I'm going to demonstrate both builds, and then we're going to talk about the gear and the traits and the strengths of the build and maybe some of the weaknesses too. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then we'll talk about it.
Hi there. Use the console to begin combat testing. If you have any inquiries, come speak to me.
Alright, so that one's 12-9 on the dagger build. I made a few mistakes. Thief's a pretty hard class to execute in some circumstances, but as you can see, even with a few mistakes, pretty high damage, very survivable. We survived uh, the moderate pulsing damage without any problem. We had really good boon uptime, as you saw on our boon bar. And so now I'm going to go into the second version of the build, which is going to be the rifle rotation, and I'm going to show you that one, and then we'll talk about both of these a little bit more in just a second. And so with that one, we hit 11.7. I've been hitting around 12, sometimes 12 and a half, sometimes 13. It really just depends on, there's a few different variables that affect that. One of them is what stolen skills you get from the Deadeye's mark, and so that can affect the damage output. You really don't want the quickness one because, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But as you can see, pretty decent damage, even on this ranged build with the sniper rifle. We were able to tank the moderate damage pretty well, and as you can see, it does a lot of damage, right? This is a lot of damage. If I just stand in it here without the boons and the healing that we're doing, I do take a lot of damage very quickly. But so really quickly, I'm going to go over the gear. And so for this build, I went with a mix of Berserker gear and Cavalier's gear. So if you're wondering what Cavalier's is, it's a set that runs power, toughness, and ferocity, with toughness as the main stat. So with Thief, when we're running a certain trait line, which is this critical strikes trait line, we're actually very precision rich. We have a lot of extra precision, and so what I've elected to do is transfer some of our power. So we lose a little bit of power by taking these Cavalier statted gear pieces, but we transfer a small amount of power into a large amount of toughness because we don't need the precision that the Berserker gear gives us in some senses. And so I really struggled. You could see with all these different runes and sigils that I have over here, I really struggled with where exactly I wanted to place the toughness and precision of values on this build, because you can fluctuate it in a lot of different ways to basically, like, you could run like a full cav set with a bunch of extra precision in your runes and your sigils and with your traits and stuff, and you could get like 2000 toughness and just be super tanky, but you do a lot less damage. Or you could do the total opposite, where you could just run no cavs pieces, just run full berserker and do as much damage as possible. So you're you're welcome to do that on this build, but essentially what I just, for simplicity's sake, just make sure you keep your weapons in berserker. So berserker weapons for both of them. Uh, there's a mix, again, there's a mix of calves pieces and berserker pieces. If you want to like pause the video and see what I have and what slots you can, but essentially I'll explain what you're aiming for in just a second. What you're aiming for is, on the rifle build, you want around 70% crit chance. So you want 70% or above. If you're not perfectly at it, that's fine. The extra crit chance won't hurt you. You actually lose damage from running optimal, like from optimizing the precision exactly to 70.00, because you're trading power for toughness. But yeah, so that's the goal, is to hit 70% crit chance on the rifle is what I have this build set at, and then for the dagger it's a little less. So they're both running superior sigil force and superior sigil accuracy, and so for the rune we're running rune of the scholar, and then for our relic we're running relic of the thief. And so the reason we're running the accuracy sigils despite being precision rich, as I said, is because we can utilize that extra precision to optimize further into toughness without losing ferocity, without losing damage elsewhere on the build. So the next thing we'll do is just give me 1 second, and then we'll go through the traits and I'll explain the build a little better. Okay, so as I was saying with the traits, one of the key elements of this build is utilizing and leveraging Cavalier stats to get toughness out of the build. And so the reason we're allowed to do that is because of our first line that I'm going to talk us through, which is the critical strikes line. So the critical strikes line gives us a lot of extra precision and crit based damage. So the first trait we're taking in crit strikes is Twin Fangs. So we deal increased crit damage, which is further increased at high health, and we get bonus crit chance if we're flanking. And so I'll explain how I've set up to like utilize flanking more realistically on this build a little bit later. But the second trait we're taking in the critical strikes line is practice tolerance, so gain ferocity based on your precision. Pretty simple stat boost trait. And then the third trait we're taking is invigorating precision. So you are healed for percentage of outgoing critical hit damage. This healing is increased while you are under the effects of Fury. We're going to be under the effects of Fury the entire time on this build, and so we get 6% of our damage is converted into healing, which is great. And so for the next line, in the core traits, the core trait lines, is acrobatics. And so the reason we're taking this line is to help with our dagger setup. And so the first trait in acrobatics we're taking is pain response. So dodging removes the damaging condition from you. So this is just a nice Condi cleanse ability since we don't have reliable. Ooh, I have no idea why that did that. Thank you, Kitty Cat Golem. Anyway, so pain response, we're removing conditions, these damaging conditions when we dodge, which is this nice Condi cleanse, and it works well with the rifle rotation as well because we do dodge in that rotation often. The second thing we're taking is Swindler's Equilibrium, so we gain increased power, and then more power for wielding a sword or a spear, but we're not wielding a sword. We just want the flat power because it's better than the other two options we have. And then lastly, in this line, we're taking Assassin's Reward. So this is another sustain trait. So heal yourself whenever you use a skill that uses initiative. Heal yourself for each point of initiative spent. So uh, on Thief, right? Just quick crash course on Thief. Instead of using cooldowns, they use initiative. So you see these little diamonds above my skill bar are initiative. Each skill that's not your auto attack costs initiative. So this one costs 3. You see the little diamond. This one costs 4. This one costs 3. And this one costs 5. And so when I press an ability, it doesn't go on cooldown. It stays activatable, but it costs initiative. So it allows us to spam an ability. And this is kind of why this Thief build kind of has two builds in one, sort of, because you really only sit on one gear set for the most part on Thief builds, because it's a complicated, but like essentially DPS rotations rely on cooldowns mostly, but since Thief doesn't have a cooldown, you kind of just spam the most broken ability, and that's gated by initiative. So having another less efficient, like a secondary weapon set, doesn't actually help you on Thief, but it does help us in the open world where we can utilize that flexibility to run two different gear sets. Um, yeah, so it just allows us to flex into multiple playstyles. You could run a CC weapon on your other thing if you wanted to, but yeah. Okay, and just for one last thing about the acrobatics trait line, is the reason why this trait line works pretty well is because of this relatively new trait, this minor trait, Fluid Strike, so gain increased strike damage for a period of time when you Shadow Step or use a movement skill. So as you saw in the dagger rotation, we're utilizing Heartseeker, which is a leap, and so as you can see, we have this Fluid Strikes up pretty much all the time on this build. We got the silly clock again, but yeah. So Fluid Strikes is up all the time while you're in the dagger rotation, while you're doing the dagger rotation. So that's why the acrobatics trait line works so well on this build. And so lastly, as far as traits, is we have, of course, the Deadeye trait line. And so in Deadeye, we're running a really simple trait line, just all the top skills. So Malicious Intent, marking a target or striking your mark with a stealth attack will immediately grant Malice. So we got whatchamacallime. So yeah, so we get two Malice. So another part of again, Thief is a hard class because it's got a lot of these profession specific mechanics that kind of there's a super high knowledge curve on, like, class specific knowledge curve that you need to master in order to play Thief, which is why a lot of people struggle and why it can be so tough. So uh, on Deadeye you have Malice, and I'm gonna actually explain the whole trait line, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Malice. So the next trait line in the Deadeye line is Silent Scope. So gain precision, gain additional precision while wielding a rifle. Enter stealth when you dodge roll with a rifle equipped. So this is really important for our rifle rotation. So while we have a rifle equipped, we have an extra 240 precision, and when we dodge roll, we get stealth, which is how we execute our stealth attacks, which do a lot of our damage and work really well with our final trait line, our final trait choice, which is Maleficent 7. So with Maleficent 7, you increase the maximum malice stat count. So normally you have 5 malice, but with Maleficent 7, you have 7 malice. So see if I change this, these little malice dots, you can kind of barely see them on this terrain if I move a little bit. Right, these 5 little malice dots. With Maleficent 7, you now have 7 malice dots. Right, you saw them change to the 7 little dots here above my health circle, health bar. Um, and so you increase the maximum malice stat count, and then you restore initiative and gain boons upon reaching the maximum number of malice stacks. So whenever we hit 7 stacks of malice, we get 10 power, 10 might, I mean, sorry, fury, protection, regen, swiftness, and vigor, and we gain a bunch of initiative back. And so what this allows you to do is it allows you to cycle very quickly through a rotation while maintaining high boon up time on all of these boons. And so the way Malice works, really quickly, again, there's lots of learning to do with the Thief, is if I spawn this Golem again, give me 1 second. Okay, so we can actually do it from outside of the pulsing because we have this rifle here. But as you can see, when I hit the Deadeye's mark, so it gives us the 2 Malice. And then every time, so the way you generate Malice is any attack that uses initiative grants 1 stack of Malice, and if it crits, it grants a 2nd stack of Malice. So you see we have 2 Malice stacks right now. If I use this ability, we gain 2 more. Use another ability, gain 2 more. Use another ability, we gain that last stack, and that's what triggers the Maleficent 7. It gives us a bunch of initiative back, and so if I now dodge roll and go into stealth, I get this access to the stealth attack, and that uses all of my malice to boost the damage of the attack. So it's very complicated to like talk you through how it works, but it's really simple to execute. Basically, you're just targeting something with your mark. You're building up malice stacks by spamming your spammable skill, and then you're dodging to execute the stealth attack. So you dodge, and then you press 1, which will be your stealth attack, and then you just reset the process again. Boom, dodge, this 1. And you can also use your stolen skill. It doesn't work with the quickness one because it's silly. It like if you have auto attack on, it'll send your auto before it stealths you, which is kind of silly, but it'll work on the other ones. See, so I use that, and then I use my stealth attack, and then we're back at the base malice. So I'm gonna get rid of this Golem, and let's talk about the build a little bit more. So again, like I said, there's 2 different playstyles for this build. One is the rifle setup. The second is the dagger setup. So the dagger setup works in basically the same way, and I'm going to turn off
Use
the
the
pulsing
console to begin
damage
combat
for this
testing.
one.
If you have any inquiries, come speak to me.
So if I summon the Golem, spawn a Golem, Alright. So it works pretty much the same way. So you're basically calling out a target with the Deadeye's mark, and then you're using whatever your best initiative skill is. So for the first round, I like to use the stealth attack, so we use the stolen skill, and then we do the stealth. And then we're just Heartseeker spamming until we get to 6. And when we get to 6, we're actually not going to do it again. We're going to hit our Cloak and Dagger, which counts to gives us initiative, but it also gives us stealth, and that lets us proc Maleficent 7, and then proc our stealth attack quickly after. And so the thing to be wary about with this, with the dagger setup, is you do need to kind of wait in between stealth attacks. You need to kind of stall a little bit, because if you do the stealth attack too early, you become immune, right? Because you still have this revealed. Revealed lasts 3 seconds after you execute a stealth attack, and so that kind of is how they control the pace of the build. It's really complicated. Again, Thief is a really hard class in terms of like gameplay knowledge. It's very, very deep mechanically, and so basically you're just paced by this reveal mechanic. So what I like to do is on the first rotation, you're fine to just go as fast as you want. Boop, 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 stolen skill, and then go at it again really fast. But after that, you need to make sure to kind of stall and do like 1 auto attack chain, and then do your stealth attack. So you go 2, to auto attack chain and then do your stealth attack, because you can see this reveal time. If I just did it immediately, so here I'm gonna do it immediately just to show you. I can't do it now because spam too much. Okay, so I'm gonna show you. So, oh, hold on. Oh, 1 second. Okay, so if I do this stealth, and if I go as fast as I possibly can, you see how it said immune there, and I didn't actually proc my stealth attack? It's because you can't stealth if you have the reveal, if you're still revealed, and so you have to wait for that to get your stealth back. A good workaround is you can use the shadow meld to stealth anyway, which is your elite skill. Um, but there's a lot of complicated elements to this. I'll explain a little bit more later, but we can go ahead and demo the build a little bit better after I here real quick. I'm gonna go through the utilities just for a second. So the heal skill we're running is Signet of Malice, right? So heal when you attack. We're running Mercy as a cantrip, which is lose all Malice stacks. This lets you reset your target, and it's also a stun break, so it's good to have. We're running Signet of Agility for increased base precision. Again, this wealth of precision allows us to run Cavs gear, which gives us toughness, which makes us survivable in open world, which Thief normally isn't. And then we're running Assassin Signet, which is grants increased power. And so another thing with these signets is the Signet of Agility. You can actually activate it as a emergency Condi cleanse and kind of a I need to get out of here button. So it'll just emergency cleanse you, fill your endurance to full, and so you can kind of use that as like a bail button if you need. And then lastly, you have Shadow Meld, which is helpful in the rifle build. It's almost necessary to run Shadow Meld because you're not going to be able to dodge enough to consistently proc your stealth attack all the time, and so you kind of need Shadow Meld. It's not as valuable on the dagger build because of Cloak and Dagger lets you stealth in the weapon rotation, but we just run it anyway because it's just there's not that much better of skills to run in that elite spot. And so now that I'm done haphazardly explaining Deadeye and Thief, I'm going to show you a little bit in open world, and then we might talk about it a little bit more, and then I'll talk about some of the cons of this build. But real quickly, I'm going to get us to a place to test the build out in actual open world, and then we'll talk some more. So the first thing we're going to do to demo the build is I'm going to show you it on this my go-to End of Dragons hero point test. So this little guy on the hill up here. I like this one because not too many people come to it, and it's kind of isolated, so it kind of forces you to engage. With the boss. This boss stealths too, so it is trolling us.
Taking out the trash.
So this boss is not cooperating very well with us, but as you can see, it really doesn't matter that it's taking a long time. I'll do the dagger rotation again, just on a boss that's a little bit easier to focus. But an important thing to note about these Deadeye builds is that they aren't as rotationally solid as some of the other builds I've shared in open world. But that's kind of the beauty of these Thief builds, is it kind of allows for flexibility and reactive and like more roleplay style gameplay instead of like the MMO rotation based combat. And so on this ritualist, I'll kind of try to demo that. So you can kind of use other skills, like you can use your Death Blossom as like an evade, and that'll still count in place of your Heartseeker. And so you can kind of be a little more flexible with how you play on this thief build, and it's kind of more immersive in a sense because of that. It's not like as rotation based because of the lack of cooldowns. Like I said, like it uses the initiative system instead of cooldowns. So you can kind of play at your own pace. And so even if you're not as fast as like a really good thief player, or even like me, like a mediocre thief player, you can get a lot out of this build in terms of fun. That's really the focus here, is that these builds are fun. And so now I'm gonna do the rifle. So with the rifle, you have this kneel mechanic. So if you press 5, you kneel down, and everything does more damage. And basically, what you're doing on this build is you're just spamming 3.
Another soul.
And it's really simple. And again, we're so tanky, we can actually face tank, even though we're a sniper right now. We can face tank a lot of the stuff that's going on here. And so an important thing to note about the rifle is it's actually really fun to play without kneeling too. It's less damage, like it's going to be like a 15 to 20% damage loss not to kneel, but it allows you to use this really cool the 4 skill, the Death's Retreat, which lets you kind of reset, and you can kind of infinitely kite things on this build. And again, the damage isn't that bad, but it just lets you move around a lot. So if you're struggling with this kneel mechanic that makes you move really slow and you're really struggling with that, just don't do it. Just stand up like a normal person and play that way, and you can kite things out for eternity. And again, like you can see, less damage. This guy has protection, so it's going to take a second for us to kill it with the reduced damage, but it still works. And you can even face tank on this too. It's really not gonna, you're really not gonna die as long as you make sure you continue you're continuously doing damage and attacking and spending initiative. And there you go. Even standing with the lower DPS, we're doing fine on this build. And again, we're really tanky. So to explain why we're so tanky a little bit better, the way I've set this build up, it actually took so long to set this build up. So this is really important that I share why this build is so tanky and works. So again, like I said, we're running Cavs gear, so we have a lot of innate tankiness, even though we have really low health pool. But we're also running 4 different sources of healing. So the first is the Assassin's Reward, right? Every time we spend the initiative, we heal, and I'm going to move so we don't get destroyed by that thing when it respawns, because it will aggro us immediately and try to come kill us. But again, so we're running Assassin's Reward, so for every initiative spent, we heal 150. The second source is Invigorating Precision, which I did talk about already, which is our crit damage heals us. The third source of healing is the Signet of Malice, so every piece of damage we do heals us for 134, which is super nice. And then the last bit of healing is the passive regeneration from Maleficent 7, and this guy is very mad. Okay. Right, so the passive healing from Maleficent 7. So as you can see, even though we really aren't that tanky, we have protection uptime and regen uptime from the proc of Maleficent 7, and then we have all these passive healing sources and active healing sources. And so even with just the little bit of toughness we have, right, the 1600 toughness, it makes us really tanky. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate the build on a little bit harder of a boss, and we'll see how it goes. It might not go well. It's, again, like I said, this Thief build is really execution based. It's not as idiot proof. Like, I hate to say it like that, but it's not as idiot proof as some of the other builds. You do actually have to pay attention to what you're doing, because if you do get shut down or like CC'd, you will die very quickly. So this build actually has a much higher like skill ceiling and like skill curve. You need to just be better at the game to play this build, I feel like. But it is super fun, and it allows us to do a lot of different gameplay fantasies that you don't find on any other class in Guild Wars 2. I think Thief is the most interesting profession in all of Guild Wars 2. It's just giga hard, and it gets punished by the balance devs because it's so broken in competitive modes, and because really good players are really good at Thief, and Elementalist is in the same little boat. It's like these good players in both competitive and PvE kind of make the class terrible for everybody else because they break it so often. So if that's why, if you're wondering why this Thief build's kind of weird, it's because there really isn't a good way to play Thief in open world necessarily. You kind of just have to find the least bad way. So this is one of the least bad ways to play Thief, and so I'm going to show you one more hero point with this build, and then we might talk about it a little bit more, or I'll sign off or whatever, but one sec. Alright, so I'm gonna try to do this mushroom. I'm gonna try to do this mushroom hero point, and you might get to laugh at me when I die a miserable death to the mushroom, but we'll see. Someone else is doing it right now. Do we want to help them? Do we want to wait? We'll go help them. They might be struggling. They're doing okay, actually. And always make sure to use the Deadeye's mark as you enter combat. Alright, so that guy got his little kill, and we're gonna go hide over here, try to pretend we're not around. Oh, and another person. Are we gonna watch this guy, or are we gonna help him? Oh, we can just help him. We'll be a helper. We'll help. And as you can see, I can use the Death Blossom in the rotation to kind of do my own like unique gameplay loop. We'll see if this guy leaves, because I kind of want to do it by myself, but he might be in the same boat. A lot of people use this one to test, so we'll see. Okay, cool. That dude's leaving. Alright, not that I don't like other people to do hero points. I'm not one of those who like sits here and like nags people at hero points. I hate when people do that. When like they're trying to do something solo and they like be mean to other people. I've seen some people do that, and I really hate that behavior. I think it's super selfish and weird. But we're gonna try to do it by ourselves. We'll see what happens. Again, I make no promises that this will work. As you can see, it's kind of slow going because, again, like I said, the Thief, there's really no great way to like break the open world like there are in a lot of other classes. But I mean, like it's working. I mean, we're staying alive, and we're not. It is going away slowly, and I could be playing it better, obviously. I'm just not a great Thief player. Dodge right there. And we've got an Elper, which is fun. But you saw, like, we're tanking this pretty well. It's not gonna kill us, but yeah. So this is how the dagger one works. Again, like I said, this is an HOT hero point. So I mean, it does kind of work for open world for hard stuff in open world, but I wouldn't recommend this for like super complicated stuff. I think it's a lower caliber build than most of the other ones I've shared on this channel, the like super optimized ones. I'm not going to waste your time with the rifle version of this. The real fantasy with rifle is kind of is just like the gameplay fantasy of rifle I really like. Is just like kind of like super immersive, like running around with the rifle and just like finding a spot like up high and just sniping out a creature or something. So if like if I sit up here, like just like deleting things from range, from 1500 range is kind of fun. And so that's why I have the rifle here, and you can switch it up in combat. Like I've been playing them both as like separate builds here in this video, but you can play them together in the same combat instance. And these mushrooms, I don't know why the mushrooms do so much damage. I really don't. With the self-destruct. It's actually such a terrible place to test any open world build is on these mushrooms, because they just, like, you're never going to find anything that hits you that hard for the most part in the rest of open world. But yeah, so this is Deadeye. If you have any questions about the rotation, I don't think I explained Deadeye in itself like very well on how it works, but it's basically, so for the dagger build, you just mark Heartseeker spam into Cloak and Dagger and then do the stealth attack. For the sniper rifle, you mark, you spam the 3, the double tap, which gives you a bunch of boons, and then you either dodge roll to get the stealth, or you use shadow meld to get the stealth. Use mercy if you need to. Like, use this liberally. Like, don't save this or like get worried about like not being optimal. Just if you get stunned on this build, you need to reset, because you will die quickly, as you saw. Like, if you get stunned for too long, you will die quickly. So it is valuable just to hit the reset button. And you do have flex utility. You could change these up. You could run more precision naturally in your build, run less cav stats, cavalier gear, and get rid of this agility signet, and you could get rid of the assassin signet too if you wanted, and run something more fun in these slots. But I just wanted to offer like a different... some people have done like a version of this sniper build that I'm sharing here to you. But I did like a lot of research for these thief builds, just because thief is not a class that I'm like strong in necessarily. And again, like, it's just super hard to find an open world build that's satisfying. There's a few Condi builds that are okay, and if you go Spectre, like a Selly Spectre, you're gonna do all right. Like, this is the Selly Spectre I was playing around with before. But for the most part, I think Deadeye just has the best fantasy, and it has the most power built into it. It's the one that's been the least hamstrung by like competitive guardrails, like just competitive balance, making them like forcing them to make Thief suck. And this is the one least affected by that, and they're the most willing to make this one broken for whatever reason, and so that's why Deadeye still has a lot of innate power in it in different places, and hopefully some of it stays. But Thief is just a really cool class to play. I think it's definitely something people should try out, even if this build isn't, from a strength perspective, the strongest of the builds I've shared. But again, this is just a cool little build. You can take pieces of it or the whole thing or whatever and take it into content. It'll do pretty well. I've had a blast playing it. It's really fun to play Thief, I think, and to roleplay as my little Asura here and do all that. So if you like this build, let me know and share any thoughts or any questions. I don't think I was as articulate in this video as I was in some of my other ones. And so if you have any questions about how Thief plays, again, I know it's super complicated. It's super hard to learn how to play Thief initially. So if you have questions, just leave them below. I'll see if they're questions that I don't think you could answer with a quick Google search or like looking at the wiki for 2 seconds, then I might chime in on them. But yeah, anyway, so this is Thief Deadeye, Power Deadeye for open world, and yeah, see you later, bye.